Hello and welcome to another update video about Bitcoin and Cardano. We can see that Bitcoin is at the moment moving slightly sideways, recovering a little bit, as we also talked about in the last video, because the indicators are quite low. So we're going to take a look at that and the fact that many of the altcoins have really sold out quite a lot. Bitcoin hasn't done it that much. That lets me come to a certain conclusion that I want to talk about in this video. So yeah, we're going to cover Bitcoin and Cardano. Before we start with the charts, just want to show you here the current fear and greed index, as we've done it in the last few videos sometimes as well. And we can see that it has dropped further into the extreme fear area. Typically the fear and greed index, of course, it shows the two basic emotions that you can find on in the financial markets, fear and greed. Obviously, typically when it's in fear or extreme fear, especially in extreme fear, as you can see it here on the chart, it's typically a good time to buy, or it has historically been a good time to buy. Yeah, not really when you are in the greed stage, as you can see here. When it's green, or when it's moving from green into light green, yeah, then it's time to potentially sell. But when it's the red, then these are times where buying might be an option, because after that typically you have another area or period where you get the greed phase, and the greed phase usually is related to rising prices. At the moment with 20, we are still far away from the absolute low. I think we had here back, that was in 2018, we had even a score of 8. And here very recently, I think we had a score of 13. And I think it did even go down to 11 on a certain day. I did see that at some point, or even 10 here. No, there was an 11 just here. So yeah, we are still now with 20, still a little bit away from the absolute low. That indicates prices could drop lower. On the other hand, it might mean that we might need a little bit of a recovery as well before we can drop further. Okay, so we're going to take a look at that on the Bitcoin chart. This is the Bitcoin chart, 8-hour chart. Prices come from Bitstamp. My view here is still obviously that we are in this larger ABC correction. This, by the way, is a wave B here, which was overshooting the previous high, the wave 1. I had a question in the last video where the wave B was, so this is it. The all-time high is basically the top of the wave B, okay, at around nearly 70k, okay. Since then, we've obviously been dropping. We talked about these prices already back in November, the prices that we're seeing now, but I still expect lower prices, as we said already back then. Of course, back then I seemed to be a crazy person, but now it seems to be that everybody is talking about these prices. Now, what is the price doing? We talked about it in the earlier update today that Bitcoin is in a descending broadening wedge. Now, this descending broadening wedge is a rather bullish pattern, okay? We talked about that as well. And we talked about the potential of Bitcoin finding support here on the support line because it was oversold, yeah, on various indicators, on various time frames, and that it could now go up and retest the resistance line of that broadening descending wedge. It has done that. Well, it hasn't quite got there, missed it by a couple of $100. But yeah, I think it did go all the way up, retested, and we are still in this descending wedge. Now, other altcoins sold off around 15%. We had, I think here, Cardano, we had XRP, a few others that did sell off quite a lot in the last day. Bitcoin didn't really. Bitcoin still held support at 36.5k, right, at this low. So we obviously talked about this scenario here, that Bitcoin comes down lower into my area of 20 to 29k. That is still my view. That is still my scenario. I think that is going to play out. Of course, and I always need to add it, I don't know. I'm not the person with a crystal ball. I can only tell you what I know from my experience in the crypto markets, by applying the Elliott Wave method, by looking at indicators and so on. So for me, everything is pointing towards this area 20 to 29k. I did explain it in previous videos a lot why. And also we talked about it back in November already. Yeah, so we are heading into that direction. And also this latest move up for me was very corrective. We talked about it. I didn't expect it to break here key resistance levels, and it didn't. It did move up all the way to nearly the maximum of what I said it could do in that move. Since then, we have been moving further down. So all of that was expected. We could now be really already, so this could have been an ABC correction within a wave 4, and we could already be in that wave 5. Yeah, that is certainly a possibility. For me at the moment, what I'm missing is really the impulse of this. We can't really clearly see a 5-wave structure here yet. Yes, this could be a 1-2, and maybe we have a 3. maybe a wave 4 already, but it doesn't, if you zoom out, you don't really see it, right? So I don't really think we've seen the 4 yet. We have seen the fib levels were reached, yes, you could argue, but it's not, you see too many, that's what I mean, you see too many green candles in here. So what I'm actually looking in such a wave 3, yeah, which I said we could be in, what I'm actually looking for is something like this, where you have these very strong sell-offs, yeah. This is what I call impulsive, yeah, and then you want a 5-wave structure as well. Yeah, we had here a little bit, but you see too many green candles here. So the fact also that Bitcoin did hold quite well compared to the altcoins makes me wonder, do we really drop in one go? And the point where I think, right, we've got this bullish pattern here, right? The descending broadening wedge. We've got a key support level here, which currently has held, even though many altcoins made lower lows. Even though Bitcoin is quite far away still from the 33K level where it could make a lower low. Yeah, so this is the 33K level. And you know, the situation that, look at the 8-hour chart, the RSI is oversold, or it was oversold, but it's now still only at 36, so it hasn't recovered really a lot. Here on the 4-hour chart as well, yes, you have moved up a little bit, but it was also quite far down. But then if we look at the 1-day chart, you are already quite low. I think with the level of currently 39 on the RSI, can you really drop down to 29K? I think it's possible, but it will be very hard. Here on the 4-day chart as well, you're down. But what we can see on the 4-day chart now as well is that the indicator is turning around again. So we have decreasing selling pressure again, okay. The 2-day chart, which is also fairly relevant, okay, here we were going to, and you can see that here down here on the MACD, going to make a bearish crossover. But it seems like, and it seems to me that the MACD here might be turning around and we might avoid a bearish crossover on the 2-day chart, yeah. So the message here for me is on the shorter time frames, definitely here oversold, even though we've already had a slight recovery. On the daily, you can't really drop much lower, and on the higher time frame indicators, we're also reducing selling pressure. So generally, I mean, on the weekly, it's still pointing down, yeah. So the overall downtrend is still working its way down. But even here on the weekly, actually, I just see that you have decreasing selling pressure. It's nothing too convincing because the MACD line is still going further down, but it's reducing down the selling momentum, okay? And all of that, you know, it makes me think, do we get another move up? Do we get another move up? And I'm actually, if I had to give you my view, I think, yeah, we could, you know, because as I said in the previous video as well, the sort of risk that we could move higher from here and even go all the way up maybe to 46K again, to these previous resistance levels, isn't over yet. Hasn't been validated yet at all. So that's all still possible, even though it's getting less likely as we're moving down further. But as I just said, I'm missing here the impulsiveness of this move down. I would have expected that we now already see lower prices. Now we haven't done that. We've held this and we are still in this descending broadening wedge. And as I said in one of the previous videos, we could really break this to the upside, and then the target for this would be 41K, the beginning of the wedge. And if you then break above 41K, we could do without a problem, really. I mean, if that is breaking, then I think we're going to get back to 44K, 45.5, right? I think we could do that. You know, looking at the indicators, they might have to recover a little bit now. And you see quite a bit of a reaction here to this previous support level. So it's holding at the moment, and you are in this descending broadening wedge. So what I want to communicate here, I would not be surprised if from here we are going to see a little bit of upside, and you can get more confident that we're going to see this upside if we are breaking this level at 38.5K. If you get above that today or tomorrow, then you are going to see higher prices here. In my view, that could then take us all the way up to 41K. And if that is broken, even 44.5 or 45K would not be a surprise to me. And then, however, you know, if this downtrend that has started now, yeah, will basically invalidate it. So this could still become an impulse. This could still become a 5-wave move, but it will be invalidated if you move above 41.5K. So that is an important level. That is the wave 1 low here. If we are moving higher than this, this could be then possibly the wave 4, because we might not have seen the wave 4 yet. This could then be the wave 4 and could invalidate this downtrend, and then we might actually see a little bit further upside here. So just want to let you know, right? And some people might want to take the trade here if it breaks above the 38.5K level, and you might see a retest of this pattern. but it's a high risk trade because overall we're in a downtrend, yeah, and the uptrending moves are always weaker than the downtrending moves. You can see that just by looking at the chart. The downtrend was always very impulsive. The uptrends here were corrective. Okay, so yeah, that is what I want to communicate. So primarily I would actually say we're going to see a little bit more upside now before we then come down here, and this upside at the moment, we need to see how far that is going. I mean, it hasn't happened yet anyway. You know, it can at any moment break down further here, but just because the indicators are already so low, I think the downside potential at the moment, at the imminent moment, is limited, and we might see a little bit of upside. So prepare for that in the next few days, a little bit of a recovery, okay? Looking at ADA, ADA is doing also what we said in the previous video. We talked about as it broke out of this descending wedge to the downside, and after it lost a 92-cent support level here, that horizontal one, that it broke down, and obviously I said, I think it was in the last video, that it could now probably, because the indicators also here were very much down, you know, on the 4-hour chart, look at the RSI, it was just oversold below 30, quite significantly oversold. So if it gets below this 30 level, it counts as oversold, right? But so far, even here on the 1-hour chart, it's still remaining below 50. So what we said is that it could retest this former support level of the descending wedge as resistance, and it's doing that. It touched it twice, and I think it's getting difficult for it to push through, especially as here on the 1-hour RSI, it's still in the bearish range. It hasn't managed to get through the 50 line, and on the MACD, you can already see, yeah, it's only the 1-hour chart, right? But you can already see that the bullish momentum is already decreasing again. So all of that tells me that we could here also having difficulties to push through this 89-cent level, all right? So it might now hover below that. 4-hour chart is about to make a bullish crossover, okay. And on the daily, however, look at the daily MACD, further downside. But also here the RSI is nearly over, or was oversold. So that is also a reason why it was recovering here a little bit. So yeah, for Cardano, I mean, it might break back into this descending wedge. Again, on the daily, there is limited downside potential. I mean, how far does it want to go with the RSI of 32, right? So maybe also here, if my view is that Bitcoin could recover a little bit more, yeah, certainly maybe ADA could do so as well, especially as the RSI on the daily is really oversold, and now just might need to get a little bit of a recovery in, and that could happen through just sideways movement or very slow downtrend, or just with a little bit of an uptrend, yeah, and that is how, this could recover. So that's currently here my view of Bitcoin and Cardano. Primarily Cardano, I would still expect to land in the region between 30 and 55 cents, and obviously Bitcoin below 20 and 29k, before it then is going to move up, and the next wave should be wave 3, and that should really take us to new all-time highs. Cardano certainly over 450, and Bitcoin I would say over 100k. And this is not Moonboy talk, this is what the Fibonacci extensions are telling me. Basically, this is the typical Fibonacci extensions that are normally the price normally is drawn to in such a wave up, like it will be in the after the correction is finished. All right, so yeah, I mean, what I really want to communicate here as well, that we are getting really also with the fear and greed index here, we are really at interesting levels. Not only Bitcoin, but it applies to the altcoins as well. I mean, look at this tool here. It's the 2-year moving average multiplier. You've got this green line here, which is the 2-year moving average. Then you've got the red line up here, which is the 2-year moving average multiplied with 5. And I mean, in the end, it's just moving averages that have been plotted here on the chart. But typically what you can see when it's above the red line, it was a good time to sell. And the last blow off top as per this was the 2017 one. And here in green, those were always historically good times to buy. And as you can see here, we're getting close to this level, to this 2-year moving average, which is currently sitting at 31,000, all right? Historically, it has also dropped below it, and those were the times where it was good to buy. What I need to tell you is that personally, even though I expect these prices down here, and for ADA as well, that I'm already dollar cost averaging in, because I mean, I don't know if it will really reach my target area. It's my target area, and of course it would be nice if it reaches it, because then in the end the analysis was spot on. But it could be that maybe it only reaches the 31k or the 30k, yeah. And therefore, Personally, I'm not chasing the absolute low. I am dollar cost averaging in at the current prices in batches. I think that's the best way of doing it. At some point I will stop buying, when we get above certain levels, because then we just get too expensive anymore. And then at some point I'll talk about selling on this channel. But at the moment, for me, these are prices to buy. Yeah, that just as a final, and that's no financial advice. That's only what I'm doing. All right, that's my view here on Bitcoin and Cardano. Hopefully you liked it. If you did, please smash the like button and subscribe and leave a comment for the algorithm. If you want more content, maybe check out the channel membership, where you can get access to the Discord server, the Telegram live chat, a weekly live stream, and even some stocks and shares analysis for the gold members. So check that out. You can find the links for that in the description, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.